Hello, BookTube. Did another bookshelf tour. We're slowly getting there. This is the, let's see, fourth bookshelf of the small east wall bookcase. We're about halfway done. And once again, we'll do the transverse books first, just to get them out of the way. And the first one is E.V. Lucas's A Wanderer in Venice. I have a lot of books on Venice, especially nice old ones like this. And this is part of a series. The Wanderer series became very popular about a century ago. How old is this thing? E.V. Lucas did a whole bunch of Wanderer books, and you can find them in used bookstores. And they're, as historical curios, they're very enjoyable. And they're always, 1914. And they come full of black and white photos and color paintings that are just lovely. And they have a little bit more nostalgic punch with someplace other than Venice. Venice has made an extensive cash economy out of not changing with time. So if you were to do, for instance, I think there's one on Holland. Yeah, there's one on Holland, France, and Paris. Holland and Paris, and something like that, you're going to read through it and think, oh, well, that's not there anymore. Oh, well, that's completely changed. And that's those have a bit more of a sentimental punch, but the Venice volume is still wonderful. And then we have this, our next book. Our next book on this shelf is Wikipedia. It's this. It's the World Library from 1911. It's a gigantically packed book of all the world's knowledge, broken down. You've got states with their old legal county districting before illegal districting became the order of the day. You've got the Tree of Life is in here. You've got there's Andrew Jackson and all the major events of his presidency. This is all the branches of knowledge, all brought together in one book. And from 1911, and you can study volcanology and mythology and the various state and international capitals, and there are potted biographies, one-paragraph biographies of all the famous people. And once upon a time, this would sit on a shelf and get, as you can see, a ton of use because it was the household source of knowledge. You were a long way from a little Iowa library, and there was no such thing as the internet. A book like this, wonderful as it is, underscores even more a wonder of what it isn't. It isn't Wikipedia. It isn't the internet. A book like this ought to underscore to anyone who sees it what a great thing those things are. to have all of this knowledge and 10,000 times more literally at your fingertips at any time of the day or night. The scholars who compiled this would have killed for such a thing. They lay awake at night and dreamed of it. And here it is, and we're living it, and we're taking it. Most people take it totally for granted. They don't even care about what a wonder it is. But I couldn't get rid of this. It has answered many, many, many questions in my life. The next one is also Venice. It's a neat little book about Marco Polo, Venetian Adventurer. This is by Henry Hart, and it's a retelling of Marco Polo's stories about his own life, which is a little dangerous because he mostly lied. But it's also mixes in a lot of the history of his time, both in Venice and in the East. And when did this come out? I just loved it. I went into it thinking, I got it at the Brattle and thought, this won't last. This is the last one reading, and then I'll recycle it back to the Brattle. It will be just a curiosity. In 1943. But I ended up loving it. It's actually one of my favorite books on Marco Polo, whose big popular biographies of him are very thin on the ground. There really ought to be one from Norton or Yale or Harvard. Somebody ought to do one for the 21st century. And no one has, and I don't think anyone's planning on it, which is kind of strange, considering the huge effect. I mean, Marco Polo's book, it's not on anyone's fingertips anymore, but once upon a time, and for a long time, for centuries, it was the book in the world. You'd think that would earn someone a steady stream of new biographies and critical studies, but I guess not. The next one is something I also found at the Battle. This is the illustrated Faerie Queene by Edmund Spenser. A tiny little thing, considering how huge the Faerie Queene is. This is a tiny little thing, and it's full of. I have to find you one I can actually show you with the camera angled this way. Excuse me. It's full of period paintings and tapestries to show you what kinds of things Spencer's talking about in his big poem, and also crucially for the modern reader, it's in prose. The editors decided to adapt it into prose and out of verse. This came out in 1980. I think it's probably the last popular edition of the Faerie Queene of any kind that's come out since, which is again really strange, because just like Marco Polo, the Faerie Queene was for a long time the book of the world, of the Western world. And anyway, our next one is the Runes of Evolution. This is by Simon Conway Morris, and it is a big book. It's bigger than it looks. It's big and oversized anyway, but it's also double columned, and it's about a lot of things. It's full of evolutionary details and evolutionary problems and questions, and it's just fascinating on every page. But the main thing that it's about is the phenomenon of convergent evolution, how unconnected populations will face the same environmental or adaptational problems and change in roughly the same ways, almost as if the process of evolution is, well, exactly as if the process of evolution is one that is constantly winnowing away to the easiest, most supportable solution to a problem. And we'll come to that same solution by inertia, because it doesn't want to overexert, because no natural process wants to overexert. That it will come to roughly the same solutions many times over. So you have the eye evolving roughly the way it looks in a lot of animals now, over and over again, over time, 40 or 50 times in the record just that we know of, where unconnected organisms evolve the same kind of eye, because it meets all of the interstitial problems in the same way and adapts in the same way. And the same thing with grasping appendages or flight. Most famously, flight has evolved completely separately. Several times on Earth, animals have taken to the sky. That's incredible as an adaptation. So if you're a fan of reading somewhat steep but still accessible volumes of popularized evolution, don't miss this. Go and find it. And then we have a boxed item. Isn't that lovely? This is this was an old series. I have a couple of others of American poets. This one is Emerson, and it's all of his. Oh no, this is Longfellow. No, this is Emerson. Yes, it has all of his famous poems and also lovely spot illustrations throughout. And I love that so much that I got the book, even though I have a Signet Classic of the collected Emerson. I have the old Viking Portable Emerson, which is big, and I have a huge Penguin Classic. I wanted this anyway because it's a lovely volume of poetry. And once upon a time, Emerson was known for his poetry. He's not anymore, but he once upon a time was. Then we go straight to Dune. Look at that. A beautiful hardcover. I absolutely love this cover art. This was from a reissue, I think, in the early 2000s. 1999. Okay, where they put this on the cover. You'll never be able to make it out in this lighting, but that is the slip face of a dune with two tiny wanderers casting long shadows as they walk across the desert. Of course, Dune readers will know who those two people are. And I love the understatedness of it. That's the illustration in a vast cover of black and white. I just love that. I thought this was a wonderful redesign. And they did this in a mass market paperback. I have a couple of those. They did it in a trade. I have a couple of those. They got rid of all the mass markets, got rid of all the trades, sent them away to people because I think they're so lovely. And they did it in the hardcover, and I had the hardcover when it first came out and got rid of it. No idea why. So when I found this again, I was very happy to snap it up and bring it in here where it will not be vulnerable. And then Gary Wills, Reagan's America, Innocence at Home. This is a very caustic study of his on the Reagan administration and the people who brought it to power. and the people who kept it in power and the things that it did when it was in power. It's political observation writing of the absolute first order. And it's been reprinted many times. It's one of the rare occasions where that kind of writing has had an afterlife. I think this was the way it looked originally. I think this hardcover's been with me the whole time. I'm a big fan of really good writing about the Reagan administration. I think the country underwent a keynote change during those years. And I love reading writers either who think that, who thought it at the time, or still don't think it. So that's on there. And then we have another example of the kind of thing we've seen on this bookshelf, just in this bookcase alone, many times. An old curio book of Boston. This is Dr. Holmes's Boston. The Holmes in question being, of course, Oliver Wendell Holmes. And this book, look at that. There he is. That's the man himself outside his home. This is a beautiful old onion skin thing. It's edited by Carolyn Tickner, who was, some of you might know the name Tickner and Fields now, probably not. Someday we will do a Boston video, and I will just tell you the literary history of Boston. Everything about American literature was born here in Boston. Everything about American literature that's any good is owed to Boston, and all of the great first literary titans of America were all from Boston. And they all went to the Athenaeum, and they all knew Tickner and Fields, and they all went to the corner bookshop. We'll get to it all. We'll get to it all. This came out in 1915, so I think this shelf is this bookcase has quite a few books from a century ago. But it is just a study of Boston at the turn of the century, and in the middle of the 19th century. Dr. Holmes lived a long time. Let me show you. That is West Street, and there is where the Brattle is now. It was just a house with a garden then, right next to a house with a garden that belonged to Samuel Adams. But it's got the State House on the cover, and it's just, I love it. The reason that I reinforced it with tape is because it was falling apart, and because I read it all the time. I pull it down off the shelf all the time. And then the last thing on this shelf is 3 volumes. I'll show them to you all at once. They are sublime. They are great. They ought to be in a big leather-bound hardcover edition for the ages. I refer, of course, to the ultimate guide to the Marvel Universe. This is the deluxe edition. This is volume 3. No, this is volume 2. And then I have 1, 2, and 3. And it is every Marvel character. We go through every Marvel character. We get their biography, their height, their weight, their birth date, if available, and all of their superpowers explained in scientific terms. That's not making any sense. Let me see if I can find one that you will... I wonder if I can find a character that you will actually know. A Marvel Comics character that you'll actually know, because this is full of Marvel Comics characters that you don't know. Let me see if I can find one. How far do I have to go to find a Marvel Comics character whose name will be recognizable to you? Okay, here we go. Because you've seen him on Netflix. This is Power Man, but also Luke Cage. This is Luke Cage. And let's see what we have to learn about him. He is 6'6", weighs 425 pounds. His eyes are black. His hair is black. His strength level. Power Man possesses superhuman strength, enabling him to press, this is always bench press, approximately 3 tons under optimal conditions. And then under the category known superhuman powers, Power Man possesses superhuman strength, very dense muscle and bone tissue, and steel-hard skin. He can withstand the fire of a .44 caliber Magnum handgun at a range of 4 feet and cannot be cut by the keenest of blades. Power Man can punch through several feet of modern conventional building materials such as brick, concrete, and masonry, and with repeated blows, rupture 4-inch steel plate. He can withstand the force of impact of objects weighing as much as 1 ton without serious injury. He is impervious to the temperature range from -10 degrees Fahrenheit to 2,850 degrees Fahrenheit, and has withstood electric shocks of 30,000 volts AC. Power Man can also resist concussive blasts up to 150 pounds of TNT at a range of 50 feet. In the event it required surgery, Power Man's skin can be lacerated by an overpowered medical laser. Power Man's recovery time from injury and trauma is usually 1/3 the time of a normal human's. Now, that is the entry for Power Man's superpowers and their precise limitations. And that was accomplished for him and for every other character in the Marvel Universe, not by writers sitting around a table saying, well, what do we do? What do we say this is? But rather, as the writers make out in their introductions over and over again, that those parameters were established by all of these comic geeks sitting around a table and saying, what have we actually seen in the comics? If we haven't seen Power Man lift more than 3 tons, if in fact in some issues we've seen him fail to lift more than 3 tons, in other words, maybe go up to an army tank and not be able to lift it, well, then we know the limit of his strength. They use the comics themselves to define the parameters of the comic book characters, which is not something that their competition, DC Comics, would do in a million years. But Marvel was happy to do it. For Spider-Man, he is 5'10". He weighs 165 pounds. He has hazel eyes and brown hair. Spider-Man possesses the superhuman strength, enabling him to press approximately 10 tons. So he is 3 times stronger or 3 times as strong as Luke Cage. And for known superhuman powers, Spider-Man possesses the superhuman strength, reflexes, and equilibrium, the ability to cause parts of his body to stick with greater tenacity to most surfaces, and a subconscious premonitional danger sense. The irradiated common house spider, Arcanea trepidorium. They give you the Linnaeum classification. Just in case you got the wrong radioactive spider. Which bit Peter Parker, was apparently already mutated from a prior exposure to certain frequencies of radiation and received a final lethal dose during Parker's attendance at an exhibition. Spider-Man's overall metabolic efficiency has been greatly increased, and the composition of his skeleton, interconnective tissue, muscles, and nervous system have all been enhanced. His reflexes are faster than an average human by about a factor of 15. He is often able to dodge bullets if he's far enough away. Spider-Man is extraordinarily limber, and his tendons and connective tissue are twice as elastic as that of an average human being's, despite their enhanced strength. He has developed a unique fighting style that makes full use of his agility, strength, and equilibrium. He has the ability to mentally control the flux of interatomic attractions between molecular boundary layers. Bet you didn't know that! This ability to affect the attraction between surfaces is limited to Spider-Man's body, especially concentrated in his hands and feet, and another object with the upper limit of several tons per finger. Spider-Man possesses an extrasensory or spider sense, which warns him of potential immediate danger by a tingling sensation in the back of his skull. The precise nature of this sense is unknown. Bloody well should be. Spiders don't have it. It appears to be a simultaneous clairvoyant response to a wide variety of phenomena, everything from falling safes to speeding bullets to throwing punches, which is given several hundredths of a second's warning, which is sufficient time for his reflexes to allow him to avoid injury. The sense can also create a general response on the order of several minutes. He cannot discern the nature of the threat by the sensation. He can, however, discern the severity of the danger by the strength of his response to it. Spider-Man's fighting style incorporates the advantage of his spider sense. Spider-Man can use his spider sense to detect signals emitted by his spider tracer devices. And all of that is determined by what Spider-Man has been seen to do in comic books over the last 50 years. And on. The volumes go on and on. They take us through Spider-Man, the Silver Surfer, Captain America, the Hulk, Thor. We learn that there's a small classification of Marvel superheroes who are in Class 100 strength. And that means they can press over 100 tons. And after that, Marvel stops counting. So Thor, the Hulk, beings like that are in Class 100 strength. So we don't know how strong they are. We don't know what their upper limit is. And it's all fascinating. For a comic book geek such as me, to have all this broken down this way is just fascinating. Now, Marvel doesn't do it anymore. Marvel has character encyclopedias now all the time that have little boxes that designate what their powers are. And it's all done in the vaguest possible way. So you don't have any specifics. You're not told 3 tons, 10 tons, 85 tons in the case of the Submariner. You're not told any of that. You're not put a limit on these imaginary creatures. And DC Comics has never done it. I wish that DC Comics would. Oh, what I wouldn't give for an official handbook to DC Comics that did the same thing. Oh, God. But they don't, and they never will. And Marvel doesn't do it anymore. But for a brief period, they did this. These came out in issues, then they come out. Then the deluxe issue came out where they upgraded everything. They included a lot more characters and a lot more villains. And then they brought them out in these graphic novels. And that is the last of it. As far as I know, Marvel is doing a handbook to their characters, an ongoing handbook to their characters now, but it's not like this. It's not detailed. And they don't seem to reprint this anymore. So I treasure them. And when I'm reading a Marvel comic and I see someone do something they clearly can't, I refer to the Holy Writ. Anyway, and there you go. That is the 4th bookcase of the small east wall bookshelf, or bookcase. And we'll go on to bookshelf number 5 next time, if there are any of you left. Thank you, BookTube.